Well, all right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Hot Seat Automotive Podcast. It's your buddy CJ here. And tonight, we're talking about all things automotive industry, the automotive enthusiast hobby, cars, all the things that real gearheads love talking about, real gearhead talk. Guys, welcome back to all of my subscribers. You know I love each and every one of you, and I'm so grateful for you. If you're new to the channel, please give me a like and subscribe. Around here, we talk about exotic cars and classic cars and muscle cars. What's going on in the automotive enthusiast hobby? Motorsports, automotive enthusiast events, all the things that real gearheads and automotive enthusiasts like you and I really love talking about, the things we're passionate about. And tonight, guys, let's get right into this. There's big news. We've got big news. The new Porsche 911 992.2 generation has been announced. Details on the Carrera GTS and the base Carrera have been released, and it's mind-blowing. Guys, there's big news. And first things first, let me say this. You guys know that your buddy CJ is a car guy through and through. I'm not a shill for any one brand. I really like Porsches. I've had a few. I will have another. Maybe a couple more, right? Having said that, I'm not a, die on the hill Porsche guy, right? My loyalty is with our hobby. Real talk, your buddy CJ's loyalty is with the automotive enthusiast hobby and great cars, great trucks, great driving experiences, enjoying the heck out of this hobby as much as possible versus saying, well, I'm a Ford guy, or I'm strictly a Ferrari guy, or Porsche or nothing. No, I love them all. Some I love more than others, But listen, anytime, I don't care what kind of car you're into, in all seriousness, in our hobby, automotive enthusiasts, gearheads, petrol heads, okay, car guys, car girls, motorsports enthusiasts, we all have to agree. Leave me those comments if you disagree. But when Porsche announces a new 911, that's news. And if you can't get excited about that, are you really a car guy? Come on, guys, let's talk about it. Let's get right into it. New Porsche 911 992.2. So let's go ahead and take a look at some things together because here on Hot Seat Automotive Podcast, we look at these things together, don't we, folks? So here's a look at it. This is the new Porsche 911 992.2. So it's the interim update, if you will, just like there was a 991.1 and a 991.2. In 2020, we were presented with the 992 generation of the 911. This is a generation designation, a platform designation, if you will, for the 911 sports car. Many would argue that the 911 has grown so much it's now a grand touring car, but I'm going to call it sports car. And I'm going to go out on a limb. You guys have seen my other episodes where I talk about the Porsche 911, one of the ultimate sports cars in history, a rich history for the 911 going back some 60 years. Okay, the 992 generation was a significant step forward from a technology standpoint. What they've done with the 992.2 isn't even an evolution, it's revolutionary. Specifically in the context of the GTS model and the new Porsche Hybrid Drive, which is known as the T Hybrid. So first things first, folks, taking a quick glance at it, your initial reaction might be, CJ, it looks like a 911, and it does. Now, true to form, Porsche has not just announced all of the different trim levels. They haven't announced the Carrera S in all the details. They have not announced the new Turbo S, the Turbo, the GT3, all these things. No, at this point, for the 992.2 2025 model year, they've released details on the Carrera, which is the base model. We'll get to that in a couple minutes. But I want to spend the majority of this episode talking with you guys about the GTS. This is the headline. Big news. The GTS is now available solely as a hybrid, that Porsche 911 T Hybrid. That's the big news here. We're going to break it down a bit. I want to get your reaction to it. I want you to leave me those comments. I'm going to tell you what your buddy CJ thinks about all this. Now, let's get back to this image here. First glance, you say, CJ, it looks like a 911, and it does. But take a close look at the grille. Look at the nose. You will notice on the GTS trim, we have active aero and 5 variable vanes. Porsche actually calls them variable flaps on the front nose. And essentially, what those will do is open up to let more air in, or they'll close for better aerodynamics. So it gives you a bit of a look, though, doesn't it? Take a look at those dynamic, dare I say, active vanes, as I call them, or flaps, as Porsche calls them. It changes the look of the 911. Now, so far, this is only on the GTS, and we'll talk more about what's under the hood here in this GTS, which is the most significant news. But again, that to me, first glance, when you look at it, the most shocking view of the new Porsche 911 992.2 GTS is this front-on view with those new vanes that just kind of stand out. Do they look like teeth? Unpopular opinion. Does this kind of remind you of what BMW did with the new M3s and the grills that were so controversial? Is the 911 GTS 992.2 going to be as controversial because of those front panes? Leave me comments. We got controversy here tonight, folks. Come on, we having fun. So let's keep going. Let's take a couple of other looks at things together here, guys. And hopefully you're having as much fun as I am talking about the new Porsche 911. Quick side shot view, and indeed, the classic Porsche 911 shape. Things that haven't changed. We do have the engine out back, rear engine platform, that classic 911, those classic lines. So from a quick profile glance, with the exception of a few aesthetic differences, looks very similar, right, to the 992.1. Why wouldn't it? And for that matter, the 991, the 997, and other Porsches before it. Let's keep going, guys, because I really want to get to the big news, which is this drivetrain. So, guys, the big news here is that this new Porsche 911 GTS 992.2 is actually a hybrid drive. Within the PDK, which is Porsche's 8-speed dual-clutch transmission, pictured here, you have an electric motor that can provide instantaneous torque and power to the drive system. This motor can also function as a generator to provide a charging function to the 400-volt battery system that's also included in the 911 GTS. So the important messaging here, guys, from Porsche out of the gate is that this new 911 T Hybrid drive system is not for fuel efficiency, it's for performance. It also does some interesting things around carbon emissions in terms of saving the environment and being green. Hard to believe a super high performance new Porsche 911 GTS, we'll get to the specs in a moment, can also be good for the environment, but leave it to Porsche. Porsche has done it again. Porsche has taken European and global regulation and they've navigated it to produce something that's higher performance and meets the regulatory requirement. Gee, does this sound like F1's approach to engineering and performance? You better believe it. Leave it to Porsche. Also interesting to note that there is no full EV mode in the new Porsche 911 GTS. This is not a plug-in hybrid. This is a hybrid drive system. There's an internal combustion engine. What we're talking about, guys, is the 3.6 liter version of the flat six 911 engine, okay? Mated to, instead of the twin turbo from the previous generation Porsche 911 GTS. Now we've got a single turbo, but it's a very special and unique turbo. Let's talk about more of that revolutionary aspect of the new 911 related to the turbo. Guys, take a look at this. This is that new single turbo in the Porsche 911 992.2 GTS. Okay, what's special about it? First things first, this turbo has an electric motor embedded in it as part of the turbo system, okay, that can provide instant spool up. Instead of like 3 seconds to maximum turbo output from the prior generation twin turbo, you're talking about something on the order of zero 0.8 seconds to spool this turbo up. You talk about no turbo lag, forget about it. You get the instant punch, of the electric motor in the PDK in the automatic transmission, driving the wheels, plus you get the electric spool up in this high-tech turbo to get the compressor up to high RPM, up to 120,000 RPM at peak, much quicker to get the boost into the engine. Are you kidding me? So we're talking about a much higher performing, efficient system. Okay? Absolutely incredible. Guys, the other thing to note is that the additional exhaust pressure, instead of having what's known as a wastegate or a dump valve on the turbo to get rid of excessive exhaust pressure and to make sure you don't overspeed the turbo, what they're doing is they're using this electric motor and sort of reversing the function on the turbo so that it becomes a load, it becomes a generator, can actually produce electrical power to be stored in the 400-volt onboard battery for the 911, and that helps control turbo RPM. This thing is a technology marvel. Am I losing anybody here? Because I'll be honest with you, this stuff blows my mind. Porsche for years has been about evolution, not revolution. I'm going to say it again. What they've done with this T hybrid drive system is revolutionary. Okay? Nobody else is really doing this in a cumulative manner, making this huge jump from a, dare I say, a fairly conventional Porsche 911 GTS and the 992.1, right, with that twin turbo platform they've been using for years. Okay, moving to this hybrid high performance system, including an embedded electric motor in that PDK, okay, for optimal performance and acceleration and torque, including an electric turbo, an electric enhanced turbo system. Unbelievable. I mentioned a 400-volt hybrid drive. Absolutely incredible what Porsche has done here, guys. Guys, I want to keep going here, and I want to look at some more shots of this incredible new 911 together with you. Guys, let's go back to the outside for a moment. If you look at the new 911 992.2 GTS, a couple other things aesthetically that Porsche did. A lot of the old school Porsche guys, they kind of talk about how the 911 has grown to be a massive car. It's gotten longer, it's gotten wider, it's gotten heavier. Well, maybe bad news for some of you longtime 911 guys, because Porsche has actually said we've given this 911 GTS trim more of a muscular look. It looks wider based on some of the aesthetic and the styling changes that they've made around the taillights, so on and so forth. It looks beefier and wider, and dare I say girthier. Oh, your buddy CJ's losing it tonight. Looks girthier from the rear. Okay, they've updated the exhaust. They've updated the rear windscreen. Okay, they've updated just about everything you could imagine on this car. This is a major enhancement, not only for the GTS, but for the line, the complete 911 line. So 992.2 is a major enhancement from a performance standpoint, from a drivetrain standpoint, from a evolution standpoint, moving towards hybrid options in the Porsche lineup. All of these things, this is big news. Now, classically and historically, if we look back, for example, at the 991 Porsche 911 was naturally aspirated. 991.2 introduced the twin turbos and also introduced a bunch of styling updates, which were very well received. Listen, similar scenario here. 992 to the 992.2, significant performance enhancements and a lot of styling enhancements and functional enhancements. A couple things, some Porsche guys will lose their mind over this, just like when they went air cooled to liquid cooled, right? There were the guys who longed for days of yesterday. When they went naturally aspirated to pretty much nearly all 911s being twin turbo, including the base Carrera, okay, a lot of 911 guys said, that's not great either. And the car's too big. All of these things. The purists love the classic old 911s. I totally get it. Just like some of the purists love the classic Corvettes or the classic BMWs. Fill in the blank, right? The old Supra is better than the new Supra. And some people prefer the new Supra. 911, though, 60 years of arguably the ultimate sports car, a surgical, solid, dialed-in machine that just is wonderful and fantastic at everything it does. I'm not a shill for Porsche, but I really like 911s, and every 911 I've driven has been fantastic. The 911s that I've owned have been wonderful. The only thing about a 911 is that it'll make you want another 911 and will potentially ruin you for other cars. I've been saying that for years. They're great. Now, they're not wild. They're not scary cars. They're really surgical and refined, and they're engineering marvels. They just keep getting better. Porsche has it right from an evolution standpoint, from an engineering, innovation, sophistication, functional standpoint. Porsche does a lot of things right. Now, the styling is always a bit reserved for some. If you want a wild sports car, supercar, maybe Porsche isn't for you. But guys, we got to keep going here. We got to keep talking about this new 911 992 because it is a big deal. Now, I want to show you guys something else, and I want to talk about some of the performance specs that I think are also relevant here. So there it is. Heads up with the new Porsche 911 992.2 GTS that is now exclusively available as a hybrid, but not a economy hybrid. This is a high performance hybrid, and Porsche has done it again. They have navigated European and global regulatory requirements for emissions in order to meet the mark from that standpoint, from a regulatory standpoint, but then to just knock it out of the park and go above and beyond from a performance standpoint. We're talking about much higher performance, including that 3.6 liter flat six, single turbo with that electric enhancement to the turbo, coupled with the electric motor. Okay, we're talking about a combined 532 horsepower and 449 foot-pounds of torque. Okay, so power's up on this thing, torque is up, and performance is up. This new Porsche 911 992.2, for those that care about lap times, 8 seconds faster with a professional driver around the Nürburgring than the prior generation 992, okay, GTS. So quite impressive. The other thing to know is that for the first time, to my knowledge, ever, but certainly in modern times, standard for all Porsche 911s, 2 seats. This is a big deal. Porsche guys, what do you think about this? Leave me those comments. The new Porsche 911 992.2 will be standard with 2 seats, but don't worry, even though it's standard as a 2-seater from a weight saving standpoint and a sportiness standpoint, you can still option for rear seats, including the classic fold-down upper seat that has been available in Porsche 911s forever, as long as I can remember. That's available at apparently a zero-cost option. Now, that's great. Thank you, Porsche, for offering me that at a zero-cost option. Are you ready for the bad news? I just got done telling you what a technology marvel this new Porsche 911 992.2 GTS is. All this high performance, that T hybrid drive, rear wheel steering standard, all of these things. This car starts at $168,000. That's up considerably from the prior generation 992 GTS rear wheel drive. $168,000. And don't forget, guys, Porsche guys will back me on this. You can spend a lot on options. You can probably trick one of these out easily, pushing $200,000. GTS trim. It's not a GT car. It's not a GT3. Having said that, this thing is within striking distance of Turbo and Turbo S power. Okay? Can you imagine? Think for a moment. What kind of monster is Porsche going to introduce us to if they've made this kind of performance bump with the GTS, with this hybrid drive? What might it look like in a turbo trim? The Porsche 911 Turbo. How about a Turbo S? How about a GT3? Where's that going to go in the 992.2 generation? These are exciting times, automotive enthusiasts. Gotta love Porsche. Let's be grateful that there's still a not a naturally aspirated, but an internal combustion engine version of the Carrera available. We'll get to that in a moment. And there's still this internal combustion engine combined with this high-tech hybrid drive. A couple other things to know. With this 3.6 liter flat six engine coupled with the hybrid drive and the turbo, what they had to do was really mess around with fuel, okay? Airflow, pressures. Operating at a standard non-enriched fuel mixture, air fuel mixture, known as Lambda 1, in order to operate at that standard fuel mixture without enriching the mixture for cooling and to prevent detonation at higher boost pressures, what they had to do was do things like retard the timing. Now, I'm not trying to turn this into a super technical discussion, but what I want to let you know, leave it to Porsche and their engineers. They did all of these things. They could have gotten a lot more power out of this car with the higher displacement, the bigger turbo, and all those things. They still have a significant power boost, but in order to meet the emissions requirements and stay at a non-enriched fuel state, in other words, a consistent air-fuel mixture throughout the bands, okay, of engine performance, they were able to meet emissions targets and compliance matters for Europe and potentially beyond. So by adding all of those additional tweaks, engine air-fuel ratio, timing, boost, all of these things, they came out with this super high-tech hybrid drive that had higher performance, but not through the roof performance quite yet. It's going to be interesting to see what can be done with these cars in aftermarket tuning, performance shops. Woo, you're going to be producing some monsters, I bet. But having said that, Porsche has done it. They've navigated emissions, compliance, toughening standards and rules and regulation. But again, the engineers outmaneuvered the regulatory compliance. They met the mark and they got better performance. So I think we can rejoice in that. Guys, let's keep going. I want to look at a couple of other shots here and talk about a couple of other cool technical things about this new 911 GTS. And please leave me those comments, guys. Let me know what you think about the new 911 Hybrid T. Here's another look at it in sort of a gray. I don't know if that's chalk or another color, but you can see some of the styling attributes are different. The exhaust pipes are closer together on the GTS. You've got kind of that satin finish on the back here. Guys, a couple of other things that they did around this powertrain that I think are kind of revolutionary, not just evolutionary. They got rid of accessory drives. There's no more belt drive system. The starter motor, okay, leverages the hybrid drive so that you get a very quick start, push-button start in the 992.2, at least in the GTS, and it's very rapid. You don't have a 12-volt external, if you will, starter motor. Rather, this thing uses the embedded e-drive within the PDK. It's using this hybrid system to start the engine. Really cool, right? The air conditioner is powered by an electric motor. The water pump has been moved internal of the engine. So again, no external accessories, no external belt, to drive these accessories. We're talking about a cleaner engine compartment, better airflow, saving weight, all these things. This thing has been re-engineered. Also, they had to make room, quite candidly, for all of this high-tech hybrid drive stuff. I believe the 400-volt battery is in the front of the car for weight distribution. Leave it to Porsche engineers to get that stuff right. Okay? The electric motor embedded in the PDK, the automatic transmission, and of course the turbo also has that electric motor that spools it up almost instantaneously, nearly eliminating turbo lag, going from 3 seconds in the previous generation GTS back to 0.8 seconds. This car must be something else to drive. Okay, guys. At this point, you might be saying to yourself, CJ, what do you think about all this? And by the way, your buddy CJ wants to hear from you. What do you think about the Porsche 911, 992.2, the ones that have been released so far? Specifically, the big news being that the GTS is now exclusively a high-performance hybrid, not a plug-in hybrid, not a fuel-efficient hybrid, that can operate in EV mode, because it can't. What Porsche has done is they've navigated all of the regulatory and compliance matters to get, better emissions out of this thing with no enrichment of the air-fuel mixture. That's really important. But by going hybrid, they've actually increased the performance. They didn't say much about mileage. I want to know what you think about all this. I think mileage is going to kind of be flat. It's not like this thing's going to be a marvel around miles per gallon. In terms of the GTS trim. But guys, here's my conclusion on this. One, I'm compelled and interested in all of this new technology. Whether it's Toyota, whether it's Porsche, I see these manufacturers as some of the leaders here and the ones who are going to help us navigate and help the industry navigate what's optimal and what's right. Not just for the performance enthusiasts like us and the gearheads, but for the average person. Powertrains that make sense, technology and approaches that make sense versus full EV. Your buddy CJ is not an EV hater. Stop saying that. There's a couple people out there who reached out to me on the gram or YouTube or whatever and said, well, CJ, you're just anti-EV. No, I'm not. Obviously, you haven't watched all of my episodes. I think the technology is cool. I think there's a place for EV. But I do not believe that this hard push, this narrative that EV is the solution, that's flawed. That's wrong. It's just wrong. And I think Porsche has proven, in addition to Toyota, with the new hybrid Camry, nearly 50 miles per gallon in a midsize sedan, hybrid drive. EV is not the only solution, and it's not really the optimal solution. I digress. Technology marvel, revolutionary drive system, incredible performance. I'm excited to see what comes next. What are they going to do with the Carrera S? What about the Turbo? What about the Turbo S? I'm excited to drive this new GTS Hybrid. Can't wait to drive one. It seems like yesterday I was at the launch event for the 992 back in 2019. I had a blast at the 992 Porsche 911 launch event. Looking forward to hopefully going to this one. Somebody invite me, please. You want to invite your buddy CJ. It's not a party unless I'm there. Come on. But in all seriousness, guys, here's something really important. And I'm going to give it to you straight, and I'm going to be as honest as I can. Here's my answer to you. The more I've learned about the new Porsche 911 992.2 GTS T Hybrid, with all of its technology, evolution, and revolution, and the cool things that it's doing with that hybrid drive and the electric enhanced turbo system, the more I learn about that, the more I want a 992.2 base Carrera. That's what we're looking at here. Guys, I got to be honest with you. This base Carrera is really compelling because it's as close as you can get to the foundations of what the Porsche 911 has always been, and just a fun, amazing, jump in and drive sports car. I got to tell you, now, the bad news. New Carrera 992.2, this thing's going to start at about $120,000 for a base Carrera before options. Now, the good news, The base Carrera now has the 3.0 twin turbo and some of the performance aspects of the previous generation GTS. So all of these performance enhancements in the Carrera, it's got a slight performance bump, perhaps not as much as you might think, but I'd say the 992.2 Carrera has definitely gotten better also. It's more expensive. It's got some aesthetic updates, some styling updates. It's got some performance updates. But in terms of being a pure, just perfect sports car to have a blast with, cruising around, use it as a daily, do a road trip, mountain run, beach run, 911 Carrera, if those that know your buddy CJ and watch my videos and even hang out with your buddy CJ once in a while, you know that I'm a big fan of the 911 Carrera S trim as a sweet spot in the line. Now, I'm going to reserve judgment until I see the Carrera S and I see the turbo for the 992.2 generation. Having said that, today, would I want to take that leap into deep water, super deep, revolutionary water, and go with a 992.2 2025 GTS T Hybrid, first generation of this new high-tech, high-performance hybrid drive, e-drive embedded in the automatic transmission, 400-volt battery, plus an electric turbo? That's a lot. Guys, that makes me nervous. That's a lot to bite off. You're heading into deep, innovative, bleeding-edge waters. And listen, I do believe Porsche will stand by their product. Will it be a lemon? I doubt it. I'd like to think that Porsche will work all the bugs out, but Porsche's had issues with some of its innovations over the years. How about those GT3 motors years ago and the 991s that had major issues, okay? So Porsche hasn't been without fault, but they've always stood by their products and done right, as far as I can tell, and based on my ownership experience. I just think that you're getting into the realm of huge leaps forward from a technology and innovation standpoint. With that comes some risk. What's that hybrid drive going to look like in 5 or 10 years? Are there going to be bugs with it? We don't know. Porsche fans, don't get offended. Porsche guys, don't get upset. All I'm saying is you might look at that new GTS like your buddy CJ does, be a little bit nervous. You have to be eyes wide open. I always say, I want you guys to be eyes wide open as you're looking at cars, just like I am. We should be somewhat skeptical. It's going to be interesting and fascinating to watch. Would I buy one? I'd consider it. But as I said, I'm going to stand by my statement. This 911 Carrera 992.2, I can't wait to check these out. I might snag one of these. What a great car the 911 is overall, and as simple as you can get in a 911, but just well balanced, well sorted, fun to drive, solid performance, does everything well. A Carrera is not a good car. It is a fabulous car. It is a fantastic car in so many ways. Now, I don't think you can get the Carrera in a manual. Not at this point. I think you probably have to step up in trim to get a manual, But having said that, PDK is great. I'd probably go PDK anyway. That's the dual clutch. And Porsche, nobody does it like Porsche. So, guys, I claim GTS 992.2. Big news here with the new T Hybrid drive, Porsche 911 coming out in 2025. We're going to start seeing them on the roads probably as early as, maybe late this summer into the fall. Who knows how soon they're going to actually start landing here in the U.S. But, guys, I got to be honest with you. It's a massive leap forward in technology. This thing is, in my opinion, the more I read up on it and did research on it, and I just gave you a few snippets tonight, of course, oversimplifying so much of it. I really sat here and said, wow, this is revolutionary. This is some next level hybrid performance stuff for a production car. It's going to be fairly, produced at scale. Can you consider Porsche 911's mass produced? Yes, not on the level of a Camry, but this thing's they're going to be producing a lot of these. How are they going to fare? How's that hybrid drive going to fare? We know how wonderful Porsche can be from a quality and engineering standpoint, but you've always got to have some level of skepticism when there's this massive leap forward around technology and innovation and hybrid drives and hybrid electric turbos that can also charge the battery. Like, it's wild. It's absolutely wild. Compelling and interesting to me as a car guy, but man, doesn't it kind of make you hearken back and desire days when things were just more simple? And as simple as we can get today with a brand new Porsche 911 is that Carrera 3.0 liter twin turbo with the PDK. Just such a rear wheel drive, rear engine. Are you kidding me? Just an incredible sports car all around. Starting point, 120K for the Carrera, 168K for the GTS. These are big money cars. Come on. These are expensive sports cars, but also 60 years of the Porsche 911. They're also some of the best sports cars in the world. Hard to argue. So, guys, that's about it. I wanted to come on here and talk to you just a little bit about the big news of the new Porsche 911 992.2, specifically the GTS trim, all hybrid. What do you think? Leave me those comments. Hot Seat Automotive Podcast. You know your buddy CJ loves you. And listen, guys, give me the like and subscribe. Looking forward to talking to you. Hit me up on the gram, Hot Seat Gearheads. And until then, I'll speak to you on the next one. Peace.